Hey everyone, my name is Taryn and thank you so much for stopping by my channel, Nicole Flower House. This channel is all about my cut flower garden and I'm located in Zone 7B. It is late February and this week I'm making an arrangement all from ingredients that are currently growing in my landscape or in the garden. This here is a tulip and for a lot of people you would think this is a fail, but I'm still going to use it in my arrangement, as you will see later on. This here is actually arugula, and it has bolted and gone to seed, so it has these cute little flower buds at the top, so I will be using that. This is just from some shrubs. These shrubs are from the big box store. They were in front of our house when we moved in, and I use them all the time in my arrangements. I have eucalyptus and cypress, something I think that looks really nice in late winter and early spring arrangements. I have hellebore. You'll notice the seed pods on these flowers. This is the best time to cut these flowers to get good vase life. If the seed pod isn't developed, you should wait or they will wilt after you cut them. My anemones are starting to pick up, so I have quite a few of those to use as well. I'm also going to be using this lavender today, and you can see that these branches have become woody at the bottom and the foliage has died off, but I'm just going to remove that dead part and use the top fluffy parts of this lavender. That part still looks really nice and it smells amazing. So even though it's late winter and there's not a lot of blooms to put in this arrangement, the arrangement will still smell very nice. These are forsythia branches. I'm not sure if they will bloom out or not in the arrangement. I've kept one behind out of the arrangement in water to see what happens with it. I know you can force these branches to bloom, but I haven't had experience with that yet. This stick is something I'll be using in the arrangement and you will see what that is for later on. I have a second set of the ruby shrub branches that I'll be using for mechanics rather than foliage in the arrangement. The container I'm choosing to use is a stemless wine glass. Now you can get just as many flowers in this as any other container. So the diameter of the container you use is what kind of for me determines the value of the arrangement because it determines how many stems you can put in the arrangement. I'm using this stemless wine glass because I have some shorter stems. As cut flower growers, we all want really long stems on our blooms because that is what florists like. And if you're making a very large arrangement, a very tall arrangement, you will need tall stems. But if you are doing something in a wine glass or a mason jar or something, you do not need really long stems. And those blooms are just as valuable to me. Because a lot of the times I'm cutting that stem length off anyway once I start arranging. I've also learned the hard way that I need to consider where the arrangement is going when I decide how tall it's going to be. If I'm going to place it on a table where people will be sitting, a shorter arrangement works better so it doesn't block the view. Now I'm using these shrub branches to make some mechanics for my arrangement. I really love using things that are biodegradable and that I didn't have to purchase as my mechanics in my arrangement. So I'm basically making what would be a willow ball, except I don't have willow available right now, so I'm using just some shrub branches. You can use any branch to weave something or create a wreath or a structure as long as it's flexible and you can bend it and weave it around as you need to. So what I'm doing is I'm making 4 circles that are the same size as the diameter of this wine glass. And I'm going to weave those into a ball. Now, if you didn't want to weave a structure and do all this work for your mechanics, you can use something like chicken wire. It's the same concept, except I like that this product was free for me. I did have to spend my time creating it, but sometimes we have more time than we have resources, and it's just something I like to keep in mind. If I can harvest something and use that as my mechanic instead of having to purchase something, I will do that. I did have to use jute twine to secure some of these points, tie them together, but jute twine is a plant-based product and it will also eventually biodegrade. I'm sure it takes a long time for it to biodegrade, so I try to use as little of it as I can in the creation of the structure. This is only the second time I've made a willow ball for my arrangements, so it is taking me a little longer than I think it would have if I had more practice. Another thing I noticed is since these branches are from a shrub that have different properties than willow. So willow is kind of waxy, and when you put it in water, it's very clean. It doesn't shed much. I noticed that when I had this in the water after I made the arrangement, it kind of shed some, I don't know if it was dirt or just, the bark of the stem was softer, and so it came off in the water. It made the water kind of dirty. So what I will do next time is wash these branches off really well in water just to get that initial layer of dust or dirt or whatever was coming off of these branches off of them. So when I put them in the container, it doesn't make the water as dirty. Now, after I rinsed these stems off and changed the water a few times, it cleared right up, so that was fine. But that is something I will keep in mind for the next time. Another thing is I was hoping that I would be able to make a bunch of these in the off season, like December and January, and have them on hand. But the first one I made like that, and I let it sit around, it got dry. So I'm working with these branches that I've just cut, so they're very flexible. Once they dry out, they're no longer flexible. So it was just harder for me to pop that into the container. So I'm not sure if I will be able to make a stock of these in advance to keep around. I may just have to make them closer to when I will be using them. I do prefer working with the willow as compared to these shrub branches, and hopefully in the next few seasons I will have a lot more willow available to me to work with. I did a recent video where I propagated a bunch of willow branches and put them in water, and so I'm going to be increasing my stock a lot. Those branches did very well. They've all greened up and they all have roots, so pretty soon here I will be planting those willows out. I have about 100 transplants to go outside, so that is a ton of willow. And every year that I coppice them, I will get more and more branches out of it. So in a few years, I will have a very large willow hedge to work with, so I can make mechanics like this with the willow more easily and more readily. This is what the end product looks like. I used 4 circles to get the initial structure, and then I used about 4 more branches that I weaved through it. It was pretty fun to work through it, kind of like a puzzle, and each one that I make will be unique. I just find it extremely satisfying when I can take something that I've grown myself, that is locally grown, that's seasonal, and I can just make my entire arrangement with those ingredients. All right, now that I have my ball structure created, I'm just going to start working with the foliage and putting my base layer into this arrangement. I like to start out with the greenery and put my focal flowers in last so that they are the star of the arrangement. I keep wanting to call this a willow ball because that's what you would look up to see how to make this. I don't know what else to call it, but it's not made out of willow. But anyways, my stick ball, I guess, it just sits down into the container. It allows the stems that I'm putting in to have a little more stability and structure. I think next time I may make the structure a little less intense so I have more room to put the branches in. Once the arrangement got really full, it was challenging to put the stems down into the ball. I am not sure if it was the ball itself or just the fact that there were a lot of stems in the arrangement. The first ingredient I'm using in this arrangement is the cypress. It's being a little floppy and giving me some trouble, but that's okay because as I add more ingredients, they will support each other and be less floppy. I'm really happy that I'm taking the time this season to really experiment with creating new mechanics. I'm sure I'm not the only one using willow balls instead of chicken wire and floral foam, but I think it's something that I'm really grateful that I get to work on. Sustainable floristry is relatively new and I'm glad to participate. Now onto this stick. Part of my model is that I do not use plastic in my arrangements. So I am using this stick to create a card holder. These floral snips here are not enough to cut the stick, so I'm going to grab my pruners, and on one end I'm creating a sharp point so that it's easy to stick into the arrangement, and on the other end I'm just creating a slit down the middle, and that is where I will put the card, and I'll show you that at the end of the video. Another common thing found in floral arrangements are floral picks. These are plastic items that are used to decorate or make something a little more festive, which I love the idea of. So I think I want to experiment with using willow and dried flowers to create a biodegradable option to replace a floral pick. Not using any plastic in my arrangements has been a fun project for me to think about and work on. When I first started getting into flower arranging, I took a few classes, and every class we used floral foam blocks as the base of our arrangements. We also used wire and plastic tape, floral tape, and all kinds of things. Sometimes even wax sprays are used on the blooms to make them last longer. Most of these ingredients are just not great for the environment, and these are all things I like to avoid because I have that option. Not everyone has the resources to spend time weaving willow balls or using chicken wire in their arrangement, but that's something I do have the luxury of incorporating into my work. This is another reason why I love the fact that I'm the only person or employee involved with Nicole Flower House. I get to make all the decisions on my own, and I get to create arrangements with whatever my heart desires, and I can skip whatever ingredients I want as well. I also love the concept of growing everything myself and only using seasonal ingredients. So you will notice this arrangement has a lot of greenery. And that's because that is what's available to me right now in my zone. I think it's challenging to not order in flowers and have every flower available at all times of the year, but it also makes the arrangements so unique and so beautiful, and they don't look out of place. When I deliver this one to the client this weekend, it's not going to look shipped in because it will not have something out of season. I would not deliver an arrangement in February that has sunflowers in it unless I lived somewhere where I could get sunflowers out of my own garden in February. I think these seasonal arrangements really tie us into nature and our environment that's around us. The local flower movement kind of followed along right behind the local food movement, and it's really picking up momentum, and that makes my heart so happy. A lot of flowers that are used, a high majority of them are imported in, and they go through a lot to get to our doorsteps. So the fact that I can grow my own and use just seasonal things in my arrangements, I was really inspired by other local growers and I wanted to follow in their footsteps. So that is how I got started on this local flower venture. There is a big learning curve and I've learned a lot over the past 4 to 5 years about growing flowers. That's about how long I've been doing this. It is challenging, but it's also very rewarding just to see something that I've created, that I've grown myself, and I know that it's sustainable. And instead of harming the environment, it really celebrates nature, what she has to offer in a seasonal capacity, and it just highlights the beauty. Yes, I am not able to use certain flowers at certain times of year. I'm not able to create a super bright, bloom-filled arrangement in the middle of February, but I can highlight what is available right now with the greenery, the cypress, the herbs, the lavender, the eucalyptus, the branches. All of it is still beautiful. And of course, the hellebore and anemones, I do have blooms, and they are just wonderful. The fact that hellebore blooms in the middle of winter and also thrives in the shade. So there's options if we look for them, and to just bring some cheer into someone else's life without harming the environment in the process. If you have similar loves and ideas about sustainable and biodegradable floral design, please leave us comments down below. I would love to spread this information around and make it more accessible and popular. And I just think it would be great if we could all learn from each other and encourage each other, because it can be challenging at times to work this way. I do think this movement of local flowers and sustainable floral techniques is gaining momentum. So I'm really excited to see what comes about in the future in the next few years. I will be adding 1 tulip to this arrangement shortly. My tulips are on the way. They'll be blooming very soon and I can't wait. However, the first few that have started to come up are in the red-orange cubed variety, and they are extremely short. Most growers, when they see this, think it is a complete fail, where the bud pretty much comes up right at the ground level. What I had to do was dig out the tulip bulb, which isn't a big deal for me because I replant new bulbs every year. Part of the reason you can get really short tulips like that, where the bud is right at the ground level, is because you didn't get enough chill hours on the tulips. So tulips need a certain amount of time to be cold for them to form their blooms properly. Now, I did get these bulbs pre-chilled to hopefully avoid this situation from the company that I bought them from. However, when you get them pre-chilled, you have to plant them right when you get them. You can't let them warm up for too long or it loses its effect. And I think that's what happened here. Because I am redoing a lot of the structure of my garden this year, it took me several weeks to get these bulbs into the ground. And we also had a very warm period of weather right after I got them in, and they started sprouting up the foliage very, very early. So I'm not surprised that I have some tulips like this. Not all of them are doing that, so it's not a complete fail on tulips this year. But one cool thing about tulips is even after you cut them, they continue to stretch and reach for light. So this tulip in a day, maybe 2 days, will be a couple inches taller. So all I do is I tuck them down into the base of this arrangement. It's pretty low in there, as you can see, but then in the next 2 to 3 days, it will stretch and pop out. So that is something to keep in mind when you're arranging, is that your tulips should nestle down in pretty low if you're wanting the end result to be that they're a little bit more prominent in the arrangement. And also, if you have like a bouquet of tulips, you'll have to keep cutting the stems a little bit or it will outgrow its container. So I don't think this very short tulip is a fail. I'm glad that I still got to use it, and that is just something cool and unique about tulips, is that they will keep stretching for light even after you cut them. Now I'm just showing you a very sped up and satisfying look at this arrangement that I just made, so you can get the full effect in just about a minute. This arrangement did take me quite a bit of time to make. It is the first one of the season, so I'm a little bit rusty. And also, I did spend the time to make that willow ball at the beginning. Here is my stick card holder that I showed you earlier. You just spread this little slit apart and stick the card down in there, and then voila, you have a plastic-free card holder for your arrangement that can get tossed in the compost with the rest of the blooms once they've run their course. I really love how this one turned out, and I really think the client will love it too. It'll brighten their day in this late winter time. Well, that is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this arrangement as much as I did. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and the best way you can support me and my channel is to subscribe and share it with your flower-loving friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.